I didn't meet Jay first time I ever saw him. I went into the pool room. Actually, my parents took me and my brother in there, and I was 14 years old, and went through the front door, and it was during tournament night. And Swanie was playing on the very front table, and he was really the first player I saw hitting balls when I came through the door. And it was really interesting to me because I was just, novice player, beginner player, and watched him. He had an angled shot, and he, shot the ball, and I expected just the ball to do one thing, and he had put some low English on the ball and changed the angle and bent it into the rail, and I looked at that and I was like, how could that happen? Unbelievable. And I watched him for a while, and he was making all these shots, and it was really amazing to see for the first time. And after a while I got to know who everybody was, Swanie included, and I don't remember exactly when I was first introduced to him, but I remember seeing him then for the first time. It was really cool. I've played with Swanie in tournaments. I've also matched up with him. Swanie was, when I started becoming a player, Swanie was the guy that I wanted to beat. He was the player in town that everybody looked up to. Everybody, if you did something if you beat Swanie. He was our local hero, and he was the guy that I wanted to be better than him, and it was kind of inspirational for me to try to reach that point, and try to knock him off of the pedestal, if that's what it was. But he ended up dying before that ever really came about, and he kind of quit playing anyway, so it wasn't really like it was a feat anymore. It was, it got used to Swanie not really playing all that much, so it wasn't, the goals changed, but still everybody looked up to him. I think just about everybody liked Swanie. He was a good guy. He was always, never really had anything bad to say, and just pleasant to be around.
Remember the agility of the bets, how he would outside with his kicking ability. He would get somebody lured into they'd be athletic and they'd be kicking at the wall, and he goes, "Man, you kick pretty hard, but I bet I can kick that high." And then you find out that Swanie was his stature between 350 and 400 or whatever it was, could raise his leg at least 18 inches above his head, which nobody in their right mind would think would be physically possible. And I saw him win lots of money with that one. He was an agile man, for such a large man. He was just the delicate touch of playing pool and the things that he could do physically that was just real graceful, And to add to that, my wife, I was talking to her and telling her about this, and I asked her, what do you remember? She goes, I remember he was the biggest gentleman I ever met. She goes, out of all the guys that you ever came around from the pool hall, he was the only one that was sincerely nice and respectful. And that's what I think everybody liked about him.
No, actually, right now I play at On-Cue Billiards in La Mesa. College billiards has changed hands quite a few times since the days of Swanie, and since when we all played there, and it's not so much of the players' room anymore. So we all kind of moved over to On-Cue. I've made it to most of these. I don't think I haven't made it to every one, but most of them I've made it out to. So it's one of these tournaments that I keep trying to win, primarily for San Diego. Because of Swanie, this is a tournament that means something that's a little bit more special for San Diego players. And honestly, I don't think a San Diego player has ever won it. So someday, not this time.
Well, your brother is still...
Yeah, right.
He's not a San Diego player?
No, he's not going to win.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, okay.
Make sure that's up.
That's a different interview.
Swanie was always, he'd always walk by, and I'd be practicing a shot, and he wouldn't really show me how to do it, but he'd, he'd come by and he'd say, you got to hit that with a little more inside English than what you're doing. And then he'd just walk off. And I'm like, okay, and so keep trying to put a little more, okay. But, as far as, conversations or anything like that, yeah, kind of kept to a minimum. Jay kind of had a nice style of his own, very smooth stroke, big stroke kind of player. And I always liked watching that when he'd hit the ball. Sometimes it didn't look like he hit the ball very hard at all, but yet he'd get so much action out of the cue ball when he'd hit it. Locally, I mean, I'd say that there's a young kid in town that doesn't really have the same appearance, but looks a lot like how Swanie, the stroke kind of looks like Swanie when he's very smooth. And I kind of laugh, call him Little Swanie every once in a while, but he doesn't know that. But he's kind of reminds me of him a little bit. Yeah. But it's hard to duplicate what that guy had.
In the, I guess it was the early 70s, I was living in the northern part of California. At that time I thought, well, I'm going to take a little trip down to Southern California and play a little pool, maybe make a little money. So I went through San Jose, Santa Barbara, worked my way through Los Angeles, and then I wound up in San Diego, a place called College Billiards, which is where Swanie played. Of course, I didn't know Swanie. I didn't know who he was, nothing, And I go into this pool room and sit around for a little while. Guy comes over, asks me if I want to play, and it was Swanie, but I didn't know who he was, never heard of him. And so we started playing, and I'm thinking that I'm sneaking in. But I did see a friend of mine that I'd known years back, Billy the Kid Arguellos, and I saw him across the room, and I kind of give him the high sign, like, mum's the word, like, quiet, you're in, Little did I know what kind of trouble I was in. We started playing, and we started off, slow, easy bet, and the money started getting a little heavier. And my game picked up a little bit. Unfortunately, so did his. And, well, to make it short, what happened is that I hung around longer than I should have. Because now, usually when you run into somebody that plays real well, and you say, well, I can't make no money here, I'm out of here. So, but the reason I hung around in the game is because he played so smooth. I mean, he was smooth for a big guy. Smooth, smooth, smooth. And I think that's why I kept playing, because I was just so impressed with what I was looking at. And he reminded me of a player that I played years before, a guy named Don Watson, Portland Don. They didn't look alike, but with the same smoothness, always on the right side of the ball, calm, and I was impressed. I just hung around. After I left that place that day, like I said, after playing longer than I should have, I went out and had a few drinks. I just needed something to calm me down from what I saw. But we became good friends after that, and every time we saw each other, we'd go out to dinner or something, do a little something. But I'll tell you, watching him play was like drinking a smooth glass of scotch or something. I mean, that's the impression I got of the way, from what I saw in the way he played. Very smooth. He was such a low-key person that he was just there to do a job, and as smooth as he could without kicking up any dust. I mean, that was Swanie. Like I said, you call a hit on him, that was bad. Even if it wasn't, he's just okay and goes and sit down. Wouldn't make an argument about anything. He was just a quiet guy. Everybody liked the way he played, and they tried to take some of his game into their game, which to me, that was really great. I myself, after having played him, and like I said, I played him longer than I should have, it was because I was so amazed at the things that he was doing and how he did it and so smooth that I tried to pattern a lot of things that I did later on in my game to what I saw him doing it. So even though I lost to him, some pretty decent money, I actually paid for a lesson for things that have stayed with me for many years after that.
Well, Jay was certainly one of the top 10 players. I've seen places where he listed as high as number 4 in the country. So in that effect, he actually changed the way people thought about San Diego. He represented San Diego. People came here and they knew they were going to get Swanie. That's the last guy. You could play everybody else in town, but you always save Swanie for last. Now, there was a whole different culture in LA, and they were only 100 miles apart. But people used to come down from San Francisco. They'd come down to the Bay Area just to play Jay. So within the state, he really changed people's perception of San Diego just by himself, because he was really a mountain of a man, sort of off to the side in his own little kingdom. And people sometimes said it was too tough to stop by and see him, but people changed. I know I changed my game. I changed a lot of things about my life because of the way I saw him do things, just the way I saw him practice. And I asked him, it's just practice. Why do you try so hard? And he's not trying to draw his ball 2 rails. And what he told me, he said, when you get to a game that really, really is important to you, you're going to be down and you're going to become a grinder. And you're not going to be drawing your ball and spinning your rock. You're going to be shooting right dead center English, roll that ball in. When it really, really counts, you got to make it. And he said, that's the way you're going to play, whether you know it or not, whether it gets important. Everybody does. When you really make it, that stroke tightens up. And that was the way he practiced. He practiced just like he played. It wasn't experimentation. It was work to him. That certainly changed my life just from knowing him. On the way up here, as I passed North Torrey Pines Beach, lifeguard station number 5, where we spread his ashes, I stuck my head out the window and I said, "Hey, Toots, what's your hair?" On the thought that I really do feel like he's listening.
That was his expression.
That was the same thing he used for everybody. I
Walk
guess
into the room, what's your hair?
if he were here, I would thank him for the few lessons that he gave me, because they were like gold. I would slap him around and say, "Buddy, you're too valuable to let yourself go. Take a little bit better care of yourself." That's really the only thing I could find fault with him, and that, hey, I miss him, and that he was special. He was irreplaceable. There are lots of pool players. There are many like him, but this one was San Diego's. This was our guy, and in that sense, he'll never be replaced.